well, good morning or good afternoon. It's so nice to be here with all of you. So, design and planning. Next slide, please. So, time invested in planning is going to make your webinar online meeting more successful. And I think as the pandemic has gone on, I've been participating in more better meetings. And I think one of the things absolutely you need to think about is who is your anticipated audience? And define the learning objectives and outcomes. This is just the way that you would do with an in-person extension experience. You want to think about what's going to happen during your gathering and why. You want to have an agenda and include who is presenting and leading and the approximate times. And in a few slides forward, we'll be sharing the agenda that we used for today. And this could be something that you don't necessarily share with your participants, but that you have in a background document, like a Google document, where you've organized this in advance. And I think that, again, that's really key, especially if people are co-presenting, so that you know who's covering what. In terms of feedback, I love how Zoom provides an opportunity for polls to get feedback throughout a presentation. But I also think too, in terms of our work, it's really important to get evaluation and feedback, but you want to make sure that it's proportionate to the length of the presentation or the webinar. And so you'll have an opportunity at the end to take our survey for our evaluation purposes and see that it's just a few questions. Next slide, please. So again, your anticipated participants, what do you know about them? You know, think about that, about their age, their prior experience. How are they going to access the webinar? Are they going to be likely from a laptop? Are some people just going to be able to use audio feature? Will they have one or more device? And there's some really neat tools, third-party tools that Molly will show you, that it would be easier to use perhaps for many of us if we don't have the ability to have more than one screen on a cell phone, on a mobile device. And what's their motivation and what's your timing going to be? So next slide, please. So next slide, please. Okay, link learning objectives and outcomes to evaluation. So again, what do you want the participants to know? Do you want their awareness to be increased? So ask. We've asked for a lot of information from you already through quizzes, through polls, through things like that. What do you want the participants to use? You'll have an opportunity later on to actually use or see in use some of the tools. So I think that as much as possible, the how-to becomes very important, for opportunity for people to try out tools. And one of the most valuable webinars that I've participated on in this year took a deep dive into the whiteboard tool. And that was really helpful for me to actually be able to use it and to learn how to use it and to have a result and to see it in use. And what do you want the participants to own or adopt or adapt in terms of peer teaching and outputs and artifacts? Next slide, please. Okay, so this is an example of our agenda. And so we created a Google Doc that we could share with one another, and we were actually making adjustments to it, the agenda, even in the last couple of days. And so you can see that we have a description, and we reminded ourselves what the learning objectives were. And then we have our agenda on the approximate time, who's going to lead the section, And we even had the slide numbers included on our agenda. Next slide, please. Okay, so we use evaluations as a learning tool, but they can be 1 minute. What was your biggest takeaway? What is still unclear? Next slide.